You know, when you have a very frustrating day, like the day I had yesterday, saying thank you is really hard. I mean, it was really hard. Eventually I did in the form of a tip, but it was really hard. And I think as leaders, we only want to say thank you for something someone has done. Or maybe because of what they have to offer us, we want to be kind in advance. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Yesterday was one of those days. After I finished the podcast, I jumped in my car to drive 2 hours in Dallas-Fort Worth traffic, which is part of the reason we moved out here to the country, so we didn't have to face traffic every day. My normal commute is 4 miles. It takes 4 minutes on a bad day, maybe 10 minutes if there's like a school bus in front of me. That's what I moved to the country for. But when I have to go in town, it better be for a good cause. So I jumped in my car and I fought the traffic all the way into downtown to go to the VA hospital. That's probably a sign or a symbol for a lot of you right there that I was on my way to the VA hospital. I had a 3:30 appointment, so I left at 9 a.m. Yeah, you know how that works. Hurry up and then wait some more. So I drove all the way to the hospital. I fought all the traffic on I-20, and I finally got to the hospital close to 10:30, almost 11 o'clock. I went straight to the lab to get my labs done. Why? Because the doctor always complains, you didn't come the day before. Well, that would have been a Sunday. You didn't come the day before and get your labs, so they weren't in my system, and I didn't have a workup. So I went early to get my labs. And at the lab, guess what they told me? Oh, your doctor canceled your appointment. Oh, so she doesn't need labs. No, she canceled your appointment with her. You could have told me that 2 hours ago before I left home. Before I drove through I was not a happy camper. So I told them that I had driven 2 hours and I would like to get my labs done anyway. And if for no other reason, then they could send me a report that I could transmit myself to my daughter, who's a nurse, who can actually read all that stuff. So they went ahead and did the labs. And I went back to the clinic and said, hey, any chance we can reschedule that, or there's somebody else that can see me since I drove 2 hours to be here? To which they said, sorry, there's not anybody else who can do it. We've already reshuffled all those. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that? She said, oh, I'm actually working through the list right now to call everybody and let them know. But your appointment's not till 3:30, so. Or as they would say in the cop movie, woosah, woosah. I need to calm down. I'm getting a little frustrated. I've driven 2 hours and now I've been told, yeah, so what? It was inconvenient to me to call you earlier. I didn't know earlier. I get it. I'm not making it personal about any one individual. I'm just saying my stress level was getting higher and my patience level was getting smaller, and my ability to live in gratitude was hard enough to express it almost completely gone. So then I said, well, can I at least get an appointment to see someone in the diabetic clinic? Because for the last 8 years, that's where I've been treated, was the diabetic clinic. I didn't even have a primary care physician because of this, because this is the third reschedule or cancel of my appointment that I've had. I've only seen this doctor one time in the last 2 years. And they said, well, I can tell you, you can check in at the diabetic clinic. So I set out to find the diabetic clinic. It's not where it used to be. In fact, I think the VA likes to move clinics around about as often as I change my socks. because there were 3 different signs. Diabetic clinic is located here. I stood there with people who work in the hospital, read it off the board, what room, what floor. It wasn't there. I wandered around the building, stopping people on random bases until I narrowed it down. I finally found one guy pushing around his radiology machine. And he said, I think it's, but it wasn't. And so he went and asked somebody else who said it's actually, and together we found it. And he said, look, there it is. And I'm like, I don't know how a patient by themselves is supposed to find that. And by then, my patience and my gratitude completely gone. So I walked up to the window and I said, I need somebody who's pretty creative, kind of imaginative. And they all pointed to each other. Nobody wanted to help me. 5 people at the check-in desk. Nobody wanted to help me. Finally, I explained my situation. I had an appointment. It's the 3rd time it's been canceled. I can't actually see my primary care. I would like to see somebody in the clinic. So they open the door. They buzz me in. I come into the hallway. I'm waiting to talk to the person at the check-in window. That same person that was on the other side of the desk. I don't get that. In the hallway, you can talk to them, but out here, they're not available. What? But as I'm standing in the hallway, someone in the hallway says to me, can I help you with something? And I said, well, and I reiterated my story. And they said, you can't get an appointment in the diabetic clinic without a referral from your primary care physician. And I said, the same physician that just rescheduled me for the 3rd time, the same physician that I haven't been able to see in over a year, that physician is supposed to give me a referral to see somebody in the diabetic clinic? How's that going to work? To which they said, that's the process. I said, great. Who can I talk to who can help me to work this out? Is there a complaints department or anything like that? She said, sir, you just do what you got to do. Are you serious? That's the best advice you got? If you need to complain, you complain. You just do what you got to do. Patience, gone. Gratitude, gone. Humility, about to go right out the window with them. And then I remember, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. I remember, these people are having the same kind of day that I am. That poor young lady down there that's trying to reschedule all of these appointments for the doctor who's out today has 40 of me. Because, this is a 15-minute rotation in an 8-hour day. She's got her hands full already trying to figure out how to get these people seen. And some of them, they don't have the inconvenience of having driven 2 hours. They have the inconvenience of, they've been in the ER for the last 4 hours. They've been seen, but now they need to get back on their plan. Some of them have mental health issues and chronic illnesses that are life-threatening. And I'm really kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, to be honest with you, in the area of need. It takes a serious attitude adjustment. When you're a leader and you need to learn to say thank you. Because thank you is the last thing you want to say. When you feel like you've been abused, you've been taken advantage of, you're not getting what you want out of life, and by golly, somebody else could have made that better. And it's real easy to fall into the attitude of victimhood. It's real easy to say, I wish my life was better, and if you would do X, Y, Z, it would be better. And I can tell you at any level of leadership, in any relationship, when you fall into the side of my life is not ideal because of you, I don't care if you're talking about your spouse, your kids, your parents, your in-laws, your ancestors, society at large, the culture around you, world history, governments in foreign lands, I don't care who it is. The minute you fall into a victim mentality, your leadership skills go out the window. Your ability to positively influence other people when you feel like you've been put out is gone. The minute you allow yourself to have the attitude, my life could be better if you, that if you, puts all of the power and all of the control and all of the influence in the hand of someone else. I hope you will hear that statement. The minute you declare if you to someone else, not F you, if you, conditionally, you give them the power, you give them the influence. Take responsibility doesn't always mean taking the blame. I get it. Sometimes other people mess up. I didn't schedule my appointment and then cancel it on my way to the hospital. That'd be silly. If I had to, I guess I would, but I wouldn't do that. In fact, the VA hospital says, hey, if you have to cancel your appointment, do it 24 hours before so somebody else can have that spot. Yeah, you could have told me 2 hours before. I would have been happy. But I can't put my happy in the hands of someone who has no control. They can barely control their own schedule. Why would I give them the control of my happy? I can't afford that. They obviously can't handle it. But how often do we do that in leadership? If my salespeople would do a better job, if my customer service would step up, if my vendors would get my products to me on time, how often do we, while running a business, put if you conditionally in front of our success, our sales, our customer journey? If you just handed over all the power. On the other hand, if we take if you and trade it for thank you, somewhere we squeeze the pineapple juice out of the pineapple and we find a place to be grateful for what we have rather than remorseful for what we didn't get or what we don't have yet. See, that ability to appreciate someone else just for being someone else, just because they are and they are human. And even if their try is very little try, and my fun and disappointment didn't stop there. I told my wife, one of my favorite desserts is there's a very particular restaurant that has the most ginormous carrot cake with the cream cheese icing. I absolutely love it with a cup of coffee. In fact, I told my wife before I left the VA hospital, I'm driving on my 2-hour journey home. I'm driving out of my way a little bit to go to this particular restaurant for the purpose of getting that carrot cake and a cup of coffee. I'm going to delay my journey home for carrot cake and a cup of coffee. Well, I roll up to the restaurant and I'm thinking it's not real healthy just to have carrot cake and coffee. I'll order something that's lunch-like. And so when I sat down and the server came to my table, I said, I literally went out of my way to come here just for carrot cake and a cup of coffee today. And she kind of giggled. She said, well, will that be all? I said, you know what? I'm going to be a responsible adult. I'm going to have some Brussels sprouts first. She said, great. Would you like the coffee with the Brussels sprouts or would you like the coffee with the carrot cake? I said, let's save the coffee for the carrot cake because I don't want to have 5 cups. I already had one today. She said, great. Let me get your Brussels sprouts. She brought my Brussels sprouts, my water, some bread. I was working on some stuff on my iPad and just cruising right along. Well, I finished my Brussels sprouts and she comes back to the table. She said, are you ready for your carrot cake and your coffee? And I said, I am. And then she leaves. 5, 10, almost 15 minutes goes by. She comes back and she says, oh my gosh, they just sold the last piece of carrot cake. Really? Really? When I got here, I told you I wanted carrot cake. It was the only reason I stopped here. You knew almost 45 minutes ago I wanted carrot cake. You couldn't take it out and put guards around it, like with flaming swords or something to guard my carrot cake? You're out of carrot cake? Disappointment strikes again. Now, whose fault is that? Well, I'm going to give you a hard truth here. You ready for this? No, you're not. You're not ready for this. I'm going to give it to you anyway. Disappointment at the failure to get my carrot cake. Disappointment is an attitude. It's a thought plus a feeling, and it's my choice. I get to choose just how disappointed, frustrated, irritated, angry I'm going to be that I don't get my carrot cake. If I was 3, I'd be throwing a tantrum. I'd be on the floor kicking my feet and screaming. But I'm not 3. I'm a grown-up. I'm an adult. I'm in leadership. I can't let my if you give her control of my attitude. Well, she did bring my coffee, and went back for a piece of chocolate cake. Turns out it was 3 times the size of my head. I barely ate half of it. But the coffee she brought me was colder than this. If this was yesterday's coffee. And it tasted burnt. It tasted like it had been in the bottom of that pot all day. Obviously, my server was not a coffee drinker. Because if you just smelled it, you would know. If you had just smelled that coffee, if you had just felt the cup, you would think the cup came right out of the refrigerator. There's no chance that you thought what you put in that cup was fresh hot coffee. There's zero chance that you thought that. And yet you set it on my table. So while exchanging my invisible coffee, carrot cake for chocolate cake, I said, can you get me a fresh cup of coffee? Because that one's a little cold. The half of the chocolate cake that I did eat was gone, and I still had cold coffee. I didn't get my coffee or my carrot cake. And so she came back by the table with cold coffee still in the cup sitting on the table and my half-eaten chocolate cake. And she said, is everything good? No, this is not good. I didn't get my carrot cake. I got cold coffee. And if you, ooh, there it comes again. If you, how many times do you deal with your employees? Do you deal with your spouse? Do you deal with your friends? The idiots in traffic. If you hadn't cut me off, I would have made it through that red light. I know you've never said that before. Yeah, you have. At least at some point in your life, in your business, in your relationships, personal relationships, parents and kids, you've put those 2 little qualifier words in there. If you gave the power to somebody else. You've robbed yourself of the ability to take responsibility for your own attitude. I'm going to give you the antidote to that. And you're going to think I'm crazy. It's 2 words. Let's replace if you with thank you. And deep down inside, we're going to start on a little attitude work, an attitude of appreciation, an attitude that says, I'm going to humble myself and realize that the outcome of your world is not driven by my emotions. I can't angry you enough. I can't mistreat you enough. I can't judge you enough to change you. But I could appreciate you. I could say thank you. I had to make a hard choice. It was frustrating. I so wanted to complain to the manager of the restaurant. I didn't get my carrot cake. My table was dirty when I sat down. My coffee was cold when it was delivered to the table. And you know what good that would have done? 0. You know what it might have done? It might have cost my server her job. To what end? I don't know. Maybe she's got a baby at home she's trying to feed. Maybe she's got a sick baby at home. Maybe she's got a sick mother in the hospital and her brain's a little distracted today. I have no idea. But if I let my wants, my needs, my desires to rise to the top so that I am superior, that I am demanding, that I am ungrateful, the chance that I could wreck somebody else's life is really, really high. The guarantee that I'm going to wreck my own is 100%. And I'm hoping you're paying attention. Because when you let if you drive your life and not thank you, when the conditions of your happiness, your satisfaction, your success, your financial well-being, when they're in the hands of somebody else, you're toast. Your life is guaranteed to be a mess. You are guaranteed to be depressed. When you're not taking responsibility for your own attitude, you can't lead others. You have no power and influence over your own life. You got no power and influence over anybody else's. At some point, you've got to start to say thank you, and you've got to begin to genuinely appreciate people for just being people. I don't care what they did for you, good, bad, or otherwise. Maybe they did nothing, but they're people. They're humans. They're created in the image of someone very powerful, you should at least, at a minimum, respect that. Appreciate that. I think leaders should take the same kind of oath that doctors do. At minimum, do no harm. At minimum, do no harm. I don't see that practice very often, though. I see a lot of leaders who they feel like the further they rise up the tower of power, the more right they have to mistreat others. There's an old phrase that says power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a dangerous thing to have the kind of power that makes you feel like you have the right to mistreat others. And I can tell you the thing, there's a young man, I don't even know his name. I see his Facebook videos from time to time where he stops people coming out of the gym or coming out of the airport or wherever else. And he puts a mic in their face. He's like, how did you make your first $1 billion? And these interviews, these conversations, it's amazing that the ones who have the B, not the M, but the B. Do you know there are 650,000 millionaires? 650,000 millionaires in the state of Texas alone. There's almost 150 billionaires in New York. There's a lot of money out there to be had. And when you get past the odds that your portion of that millions and billions will come to you in your life goes up. I noticed that these billionaires, when he says, how did you get here? What did you do different? Almost every one of them, not all, almost every one of them has the humility to say, well, I didn't do it alone. I discovered this, I learned this, I had a mentor who said this. When my life changed, it looked like this. And almost every one of them learned the power of people. Learning to appreciate people. Learning to say thank you and not if you. It's amazing how many things you get out of life when you can appreciate people. Now, it's great to say thank you for what they've done. If they've served you well, tip them well. If they have something that will make your life and your business better, negotiate well. But you can start changing your life and theirs by simply expressing appreciation that they exist. And when you change the position of your heart and your mind, how you think and how you feel, when you have a different attitude about humanity, about people, your outlook on life is going to change. The frustration, the minimalized patience, the minimalized gratitude that comes from not getting your own way, the anxiety that follows that, the blood pressure that follows that, the heart disease that follows that, the chronic illnesses that follow that toxic thinking, yes, it's all provable. That pathway starts with if you and ends with goodbye. Thank you is a whole different course. And all of the things that you genuinely want out of life start with thank you and grow from there. Look, if you want to be a good leader, learn to say thank you. If you will take the time to genuinely appreciate people in your life, go out of your way to say to them thank you. Not for what they've done necessarily. That's a good place to start. Sometimes it's easier to recognize what they've done. Not for what they have that they could offer you. I love your business opportunity. I love the way you could teach me X, Y, Z. Those are all great. But when you can learn to just appreciate that they are here, alive and breathing, it's going to change the way you see the world. And that thank you could become the beginning of your greatest success. I promise you, the power that you want to change the station of your life, to transform the lives around you and to transform your own, the influence that you need to grow your business, to grow your relationships, to make your household a better place to be. All of it waits, not on the other side of if you, but on the other side of thank you. Why don't you try some thank you today? I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. There is a retreat coming up that I want you to know about. It's called the Story Power Academy Retreat. This Story Power Retreat is about focusing on your communication skills, taking them to the next level. Discover, develop, draft, deploy, and deliver some of the best stories you've ever learned. You're going to listen, create, connect, relax, and reflect around this beautiful lake scene in Granbury, Texas. It's a chance to rejuvenate and refresh and start over with some of the best training you can possibly imagine around storytelling, leadership, and communication.